Today, I'm at Ecological Labs, headquartered in Cape Coral, Southwest Florida. I'm here with Matthew Richter and Tim McKindles. Matthew is the VP of Operation for Ecological, and Tim is a director of the company. We're going to have a really exciting conversation, and Ecological Labs is actually a manufacturer of bacteria. Additionally, Ecological Labs is a member of SRMA, so we'll also discuss the company growth and how SRMA is helping them grow. So without further ado, tune into the conversation.
Macon, Florida, growing manufacturing in the Sunshine State.
So Matt, Tim, it's awesome to be here at your facility and really discussing with you Ecological Labs, your company, your story. So who wants to give us a head start? Matt, go ahead. Give us your story, or how you started. How did you get to it? And
Yeah, we're about a 50-year-old company, family business. We started out in 1976. We had one product. We basically had a scientist who created this amazing formula. We had a salesperson who was my uncle selling it, and we had my father who was the businessman setting up the structure for it. But for the first 20, 25 years, the word bacteria was a scary word. People didn't know what it was, and they thought it was a negative. Well, today it's a little bit more positive. We know that we need to rely on more biological solutions rather than chemical and man-made solutions. So over the years, people have become more environmentally friendly. The world has gone green. There has been government regulation where it's needed. And we have seen a very expansive company growth in the last 25 years in particular, and exponentially recently.
So it's funny how you said today bacteria still, it seems like it's not a bad word, but I don't know, it depends who you ask, right? I still think people associate bacteria with like, oh no, it's germs, things like that.
And also with the terms of antibacterial soap, let's just say, well, not all bacteria is bad. There's many or most are good.
That's what I'm saying. I think it's important to specify it even nowadays. Even myself, when I first found out, what do you do? It took me a second to understand, right? So it's definitely something we would like to explain why bacteria is good. What about your story? I mean, how did you start? How did you get into the business?
Fortunately, I was born into the business. Even as a child, I was helping in manufacturing and production in New York, where we originally started. But after college, I had a business for about 5 years. I was in Miami, and it was in the nightlife business, and I kind of got a little bit tired of the late nights and the early mornings, so I knew it was time to grow up. I moved to Southwest Florida, Cape Coral, where there was only about 25,000, 30,000 people at the time.
How long ago was it?
2001.
Okay.
Very quiet town, and to be honest with you, is what I needed. It was a great change, and at that time, this company only inhabited one building, and since then, we've grown into 6 other additional buildings on this property. So on a personal level, I was able to grow my career, grow the business, and also get to enjoy Southwest Florida, which I call home, and I have no looks for the future of moving out of here.
So you're a Florida local, I guess, since birth?
No, I grew up in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, it's from 1975 to 1993. College in Miami, and had my business there. So I've been now more than half my life in Florida than New York, but my roots are New York.
Yeah, but as far as a company, did the company start here?
But in New York.
Okay,
We chose to come down in about 1996 to look out for property. We ended up coming to the North Cape Industrial Park, which was very advantageous for us at the time. Land was cheap. There was some tax incentives for international businesses at the time. This was a international tax-free zone on exports. We basically were renting a small space in New York, paying high lease rates.
I bet.
We came down here and came into a building about 4 times the size of our original location, and our mortgage was half the price.
Wow.
So just on a can't beat that. And just from a bottom line for where the company was at the time, it was a smart move. But even forward thinking, the amount of property that we bought, which was in the acres, was a good long-term vision plan for us because we would never have been able to grow like this in New York, especially at the rates that they charge. So Southwest Florida was very good to us, especially at that time.
That's very happy to hear. That's what our viewers want to hear.
Yes.
So about Southwest Florida, it's all about Florida, really, growing manufacturing in Florida. So Tim, what about you? What about your story? How did you get to ecological? I guess you weren't born to it.
I was not born into it. No. Yeah, my path is much more convoluted than Matthew's, as a matter of fact. So really, I began my career right out of college, actually working manufacturing, or should I call it a disassembly plant. It was actually a meat processing facility where 13,000 hogs came in the morning and 13,000 left at the end of the day. In boxes and packages and everything else. So that's why I call it a disassembly plant. So that's where I started. But then after
Another way of looking at
it. Exactly. Parts is parts. So with that being said, and then I moved into professional services for roughly about 20 plus years. When I say that, it would be civil engineering, community planning, things of that nature, with multiple offices. We were based out of Michigan, but we had multiple offices in Florida, Ohio, the Midwest, everything else, but a lot in the southern region, more so in Florida than anything else. Because at that point in time, and I'm talking about the 80s and the 90s, and the 2000s, the biggest places to grow were, in fact, Florida and Texas. And so we were always looking at expanding within those two states, primarily in Florida because we were on the east side of it. After that, I moved to Washington, D.C. and did some work with other firms there as well, professional services, and then ended up with actually federal contracting. Even did my own company for a short period of time, found out that family is very small with huge dollars, but tough to break into. Very difficult to break into when you're going against, Leidos and some of these other companies. But anyway, so I stayed there for a number of years, and then looked to my wife, and she said, "You know what? What's our 5-year plan?" I said, "Well, of course it's going to move to Florida, so we have a beautiful place, enjoy our retirement." But our 5-year plan turned into our 5-week plan when I met Matthew and the team here, and we've been together ever since.
Wow.
So it's been beautiful and love it, and would not change a thing of it. And looking forward, actually, we continue to do great things here in Southwest Florida, not only for the community, as far as our sponsorships, but also just being part of, Florida Makes, and part of, the local chap. SRMA, correct. Thanks. So it was a very, snake-like path, but always going forward, in the spirit of continuous improvement and making things better, and actually have loved every moment here.
Yeah, good point. And I think it's really the mindset. I mean, we cannot really know the path, like our life path, our company's path, but it's the mindset of, like you said, continuous improvement, growth mindset. And no matter what's the obstacles, what life throws at us, how can we overcome those and get better? And then we're like, oh, wow, that's actually good to happen, because I would have never been where I am right now that it happened, right? So let's dive a little deeper into, Ecological Labs, or ELI, like you call it, like in short, it's ELI.
ELI.
ELI mission, and what industries you serve, and like what was your growth trajectory? Because I know you said, Matt, it was first you had one product and then suddenly you just boomed. So how about we discuss a little more about just the path of the...
Okay, so the beginning of the foundation was a commercial product to hog farmers. So we had one product that was treating hog manure waste, breaking down the waste naturally, getting rid of the smells, plus recycling that waste into the fields as a natural fertilizer. So that was one item. It just so happens that the history of the company, my father at the time had many companies, and when he was finally done with those other companies and focused on this, because this is a biotech company, this is the future, the world is moving to the direction of the products that we have to solely be on our products. So the long-term vision basically is energy focused to here. So in the late 90s, when we built the factory here, we actually looked into starting to retail package our products. So we started off with one product in the pond and lakes marketplace, which could be in a garden center, it could be with a golf course. We're treating lakes and ponds naturally, not using chemical algicides, but biological organisms to basically treat the cause of the algae and not kill it.
Yeah.
So we started out in that marketplace, and that market was waiting for a product like ours. Ever since we entered the marketplace, we became the number one sought after item for that industry that wasn't in a what we call a box store, Walmart, Home Depot, Lowe's. So the trade, the industry saw the benefit of not looking for a cheap, quick fix,
Yeah.
looking for something that's good for the environment, that actually works. And it does take a little bit more time because it is a biological, not a chemical, but ours does work pretty
Yeah.
fast for a biological. So since then, we were so successful in that industry, becoming number one. We then expanded that line, and we are known. Our brand is Microbe-Lift, just like Coca-Cola is known. Microbe-Lift in the pond industry is known as the number one biological treatments for ponds, lakes, lagoons, and
Yep.
such. And ever since then, we've expanded even further. We went from the bigger lakes to the personal pond to then the smaller home aquarium.
Mhm.
That's a marketplace we're still trying to break through and become number one. We know we have the number one product, but it's such an established industry. We're breaking down.
Yeah, the marketing is not easy, right?
Yeah,
That's what
it's just, there's so many customers out there that are so used to
Yeah.
either what they use or on a business to business level, they're just so used to the relationships that they built over decades.
Mhm.
We're trying to break that barrier, and we have been. It's a snowball, but it's a slower one than the pond.
Yeah, I
The
bet.
pond was such a smaller industry. Home aquarium is a
Yeah.
bigger one to break, but what we like about aquariums as compared to ponds are very seasonal. You only think about your pond when it's warm outside. Now we live in Florida, it's warm all year round,
Mhm.
but the rest of the country, if not most of the world, there's a winter and there's a fall where
Yeah, yep.
you're not enjoying your pond. Spring you start it up, summer you enjoy it. So home aquariums, those are indoors. Those are all year round. Big market. Also, you think of a city like Chicago or Manhattan. How many people have ponds in Chicago, Manhattan?
I wouldn't-
Zero. But there's a lot of aquariums there. So, we're also talking a different type of market there with a sophisticated buyer living in an apartment setting in a city. But we're making major headways in those industries, and every year we just keep on getting bigger and bigger. And of course, we do other things better here as a company, like looking at how we can package, how we can put out a better product at a lower cost to our
Mhm.
customer, and then of course expanding our distribution network. So
Yep.
the more distributors we deal with, the more reps that we have telling our story, getting our product in our hands. I would say for the most part, every customer that gets our product in their hands becomes a customer, and it just grows from there. Between the
Yep.
internet, word of mouth, the forums, we're even on Amazon, and the reviews on Amazon are very important. 99% positive reviews.
Uh-huh.
So
As you were saying, what I was thinking in my head, I was thinking it just lets one of your clients to try the product once,
Yes.
and then it's going to become a client. But
Yeah.
the trick is to make them try the product.
That's it.
Because just me, as somebody who is trying quantum growth, wow, what a difference! It
Mhm.
makes such a difference
Yes.
for the yield of the plants. It's unbelievable. But then, how can you even find out? Most of your products, if not all, they don't even say Ecological Labs, right? They have the different brands.
Well,
on them.
different brands, but it does say manufactured by Ecological.
Oh, yes.
It will be on the label.
I guess it's pretty small.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think I've seen it.
Yep.
Yeah, so a lot of people probably don't even know,
Yes.
like that they're using this product, and
Yeah.
it's coming from Cape Coral,
Yes.
Southwest Florida, and that's your only location, right?
That's correct. And it's very interesting that we have had the growth on the consumer level because once we get a customer, we keep a customer. It's just the base has been growing. Means of selling like Amazon have really helped with getting the product out there in front of millions and millions of more people than we have before. Because before we had to break through the distributor,
Yeah.
get into the store, get the end cap in the store so it actually gets seen, pull it at the register, get the person to use it. There's even sometimes when the customer uses it wrong. When I say uses it wrong, uses it with a chemical. Chemicals will kill our product. So through customer service and support, we teach them how to properly use it. Not everyone is an expert when it comes to using biologicals. So there's some time with that as well. So, we are, going, increasing our sales, our production. It's been great, but the real, I would say, future is on the commercial side. Of course, I just told you about retail products. Those are from 4-ounce, 8-ounce, 16-ounce to, let's say, a gallon. But it's the world that we're going after. And of course, as a business, it's trying to sell millions of gallons of our product in larger sizes, getting it out there so it's used on our food supply, which is crop agriculture, using it in wastewater treatment plants, which is naturally removing waste from the world, not just moving it from your garbage can to a garbage pit and then lighting it on fire and just putting all the plastics and the chemicals out there in the world. We also have water reclamation, which is very much similar to the problem in Florida, where you have the excess nutrients from the fertilizer going into Lake Okeechobee. We have the water release in the summer. All those excess nutrients create the blue-green algae, which we know which does to our local environment. Basically kills dolphins and other aquatic life, fish kills everywhere, and it's bad for us to bring
Manatees, right?
manatees as well. Yes. So we are in that wheelhouse. We're a solution for that. It's bigger business. It takes a lot more time, energy, and relationships to get in front of the right people, to get them to use the product, to see the results. But that's where the future is at, and that's where the company is going. Now, we're not losing focus on our retail at all. We're still growing it.
Of course.
And again,
That's
we have a
potential
big
there.
push with Amazon, and we're doing everything to be competitive in the marketplace and to keep that going. It is our bread and butter. But Ecological Laboratories should be a household name like Monsanto, like Johnson & Johnson, 3M, and Dow Chemical. We have a product that should be in the world being used by everyone. When I say everyone, it's the companies behind the scenes making your food, getting rid of your waste, because that's, as the population grows, that even just becomes more of a larger problem. And our products do absolutely nothing negative to the environment. It is all positive. They provide the same solutions the chemicals do, but they just do it at a little bit slower rate. And at first, it might be a little bit more money up front, but long term, it is actually cheaper. And the biggest point we have to make, it's better for the environment. If you overuse our product, you pour too much in, all you're doing is just pouring extra money down the drain. There's nothing harmful to the environment. Chemicals, there's rules, they're toxic. If you don't use it within this time or this amount, it's detrimental. And we all know that overuse of chemicals, the residual stays behind.
Exactly.
And that's why we have poison water and cancer rates that we have to this day. So I'm not saying we cure cancer, we just don't add to the problem.
Exactly. Actually, it's surprising how many people don't know how dangerous those chemicals are, and even some of those chemicals that they put in our food, right, in our food supply, and that actually can cause the cancer and things like that. And I like that people starting to be aware of that, bringing talking about it. So that's very good.
Yes.
And hopefully, this thing's going to change for the better. It seems like they are. So you're talking about a lot of your products and the technology or the science behind. I guess you have some really smart people working behind those behind the doors so that nobody sees them. I seen your lab. Some state-of-the-art lab. But I bet you have some smart people. So how do you capture the talent? How do you?
So I'm gonna start first, and I'll turn it over to Tim on how he gets these people. But I will state, I've been here for over 20-something years, and Southwest Florida was not, especially back then, a place where biologists and chemists and the science mind we're coming to
Mhm.
relocate. We're not Silicon Valley. We're not in the,
Not even
leading
close.
healthcare world where, we're not in the Mayo Clinic area.
Mhm.
We're Southwest Florida. People come here to fish and retire and vacation.
Yep.
So finding talent at that time was
Especially then, yeah.
man, it was very
Especially then,
difficult. So
yeah.
we bring him in, and I'm gonna let you know how Tim handles that. Also note that we are very much a marine biology environment. So there are biologists here. They just have historically have come here to swim with the dolphins, let's just
Mhm.
say. And there's nothing wrong with that. And there are some talent that we do pull from FGCU through some of the programs. But I'll let Tim explain his challenges. And
Yep,
we have
please
brought in
do.
some from all over the world. We have talent sitting here
Oh,
that
wow.
we brought to Cape Coral.
And just to add and support exactly what Matthew was just saying, bringing individuals or recruiting individuals or attracting them to Southwest Florida is still difficult because we're still known as a retirement facility. We're still known as the area for fishing and vacations and everything else. But that is, I guess, the one hook is for example, Fort Myers, the city of Fort Myers. That's growing. There's a lot more nightlife there. It's becoming a bigger city. Actually, the interesting thing is, Pavel, on the way here, you were delayed by traffic.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I think your first comment to me is, why is everyone still here? which is true. So we just keep on growing and growing, and you see the housing is growing, where it's probably still a little bit more affordable than other places, but it's quickly catching up as far as the cost and everything else. But the attractiveness of the area is really, paramount to
Mhm.
bringing people in.
Absolutely.
The other thing is really partnering with academic facilities. For example, Florida Gulf Coast University, University of Florida, some of these other schools that we bring in. As a matter of fact, we've got one person from University of Chicago
Mhm.
that we brought in and everything else. So the interesting part of that is you have to find the person that doesn't necessarily want to stay in academia, that may have a PhD, which typically means you want to stay in academia, but really is maybe tired of writing for grants and doing whatever it has to be, maybe doesn't really want to teach. They want to get into the scientific research of it. And so they do come to the private side of it, but that's, few and far between. So you've really got to look very hard and have a great relationship with the existing professors, with the existing alumni, with some of these universities to where you're actually going on campus. And as Matthew said a moment ago, too, not everyone knows what our product is. So we've got to educate even the PhDs and everything else is what our product does, what our product is. And then, but they put the dots together very quickly and they can quickly see, yes, this is what I want to be part of. Yes, I want to be, on the next step of helping our environment
Mhm.
be sustainable going forward. And so right now we have great retention. I'll say that's probably number one, or if that is number one, as far as the best way to recruit people is to keep the people you've got.
Absolutely.
You don't want that talent to go down the road. You don't want that talent to, exit and go anywhere else. So a lot of times it's just keeping your finger on the pulse, on the heartbeat of your staff. And I think that's really where Ecological Laboratories does a wonderful job. As
Mhm.
Matthew started with, it's a family run business and we do treat our employees as family. I can just relay one story. We had an individual, a senior biologist, microbiologist that came to town and actually took them out to dinner during the interview and showed them around the town and introduced them to other people, introduced them to other employees that they would be working with. So it's taking that time. As a matter of fact, even inviting them over for Thanksgiving dinner, I think at the time. So with that being said, it's very important to treat that individual as a family member and not just a quantity that you're going out after. It's not just the talent, but it's the person you
Mhm.
really want to bring on board. So I think with that, we don't really have any difficulties attracting people, whether it's an entry-level production person or a mid-level lead or supervisor or a microbiologist.
Yeah.
We haven't really had any difficulty. And I think it's because we treat individuals, like I said, as family members. We've even had some people that worked here for a number of years, ended up leaving because the grass is always greener type situation. And then after months, maybe even a year, usually months, they give us a call back. Because of our offboarding, we don't burn bridges. We know that like I said, you don't burn bridges with family. You don't sit there and say, well, I know you're going to be here next Thanksgiving, so I'm going to be nice to you and everything else. So that person will typically give us a call back saying, you know what? The grass wasn't green or the grass is greener where I was with you guys. So we've got a few people that have come back, not many that leave, but of those that leave, many will come back.
It's funny you mentioned the grass screener and all this kind of stuff. We just on my previous show discussing a little similar, not really similar, but it's kind of similar stuff with Ted, CEO of Pelican Wire. And he was mentioning how a lot of young people don't realize the potential of Florida. First of all, the universities we have here are great, right? FGCU, Florida, this stage, like we have so many good universities, local universities. And I think our government, Florida government, is putting a lot of funding and effort into making those programs very good. So really for young kids, if any young kids listening to that, you really should consider that Florida universities. But then another thing is the grass is always greener, or maybe they don't even know the opportunities they have here in Florida, manufacturing jobs, opportunities, or any kind of jobs for that matter. Once they finish university, they striving to leave the state of Florida because the grass is greener. But I'm like, what are you doing? You're in the best place on earth. Florida is the best place on earth. And I traveled the world. I lived in different countries, and I know for a fact that's the best place. I mean, as soon as I came here, like, oh, finally I found my home.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really hope people start opening their eyes, listening, understanding that Florida is growing fast. I mean, we're right now number 15 economy in the world, right? That tells you a lot. Number 15, and we're just going to keep growing.
That's amazing. And also to support what you were just saying with the university students, the importance of internships, because we offer internships as well through local universities and even through the state university, where typically your junior, senior year, you want to make sure as an undergrad, you want to make sure that you're out getting an internship. That's real. It's not working at Starbucks. It's not something else. That's not really an internship. But really for an internship, you do want to work at a place like Ecological Laboratories. You do want to work at a facility that supports.
Strong thing on your resume, yeah.
That's right. That's the strongest thing, because that's what they're going to ask is, what experience do you have? Well, if you've never done anything, you have zero experience. And so you're starting below those individuals that have, got a little bit of experience. Even with an internship, you're not going to be doing major experiments or anything else, but you're going to be learning the steps you need to take to make sure everything's in place. So that's critical. That's important, not only in the academia, but just even everything, every job you do today is building you for your future, hence the continuous improvement side of it. What you're doing today is helping you prepare for tomorrow.
Actually, my daughter, she wants to be a marine biologist. Can you believe that?
She wants to swim with the dolphins.
Exactly.
And to give you some examples of how far Ecological Labs' reach has been for Cape Coral employment, we have employees here from Indonesia, China, most recently India, and we have one employee who's working remotely, but she's based out of here. She's from Philippines and also has an office in Qatar, and we're trying to get her on a green card here to America as well.
That's great.
Yeah, but to back to your original point, it is hard to find certain specific talent, but the great thing about supporting companies like us, we do love supporting the local area that we live in, and we're involved with the SRMA as much as possible, because ultimately the better we do, the more talent we bring to this area, the more help that your organization and the other organizations out there that help us and not fight us. You're not saying you don't, but sometimes there's a lot of things out there in the world to get things done costs a lot of money, or there are a lot of negativity or prevention, or things take time. Just having the support really helps, and that's a clear example of it. I mean, we can bring you around our buildings right now and show you at least 10 to 12 people that have moved from out of state, if not out of country, have either renting or have purchased homes here. Tim owns multiple properties here. He's not from this state. So this all adds to the local economy and just the level of people that are now in Florida. It's an improvement. We're only getting better and better. And Ecological Labs, we feel we're a part of that puzzle, and we're proud of that.
Well, actually, At your great shift, because my next kind of section was SRMA membership. So you are, thank you for being a member of our manufacturing association. It's really great to have you. How many years you've been already? I think you're a few years at least.
Yeah.
So, so thank you for the support. So what, I mean, you mentioned a little bit, but what really SRMA gives you your membership, and why did you join? Just tell us a little about, your involvement with SRMA and how
Yep.
is it a mutual
I'll let
partnership?
Tim go into the specifics
Yep.
because he's definitely more involved on the day-to-day with it. But on a macro level, obviously supporting an organization that is for manufacturers in an area where this state is not known for manufacturing. So at this time, we are a small group. So to be banded together, to have that support together, to be able to network and share information is great. Personally, I do like attending the other factory tours. I get to see what others are doing. I get to either just say, wow, that's amazing, that's in my backyard, or more importantly, wow, I should be incorporating
Yep,
that
exactly.
concept, that floor plan, that piece of equipment. Or I might see something, it might not be a piece of equipment that I need, but it's definitely in the family of something that I do. Where do you get that from? And it just opens up a nice, business dialogue that normally you don't get outside of
Exactly.
here.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, there's not enough time in the day to attend all the wonderful things that you guys have. And I can see they're all great, but we also have a business to run and we have lives as well. But I would say that there's never been an event that I attended that was a waste of time. That's never been in my vocabulary at all. I have nothing but great things to say. I will promote the organization to anybody else like ours. It has been very beneficial. But I'm going to throw it over to Tim because he actually worked
Yep.
very closely with you, and in this year alone has definitely helped advance Ecological Labs through our joint efforts.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew, and to support exactly what you were saying. And to answer a question that you asked earlier, for a number of years, we were part of SRMA. Then I think we fell off for a couple of years. And draw the conclusion you will, but right around the same time you signed up with Florida Makes and kind of accelerated some of the processes and some of the marketing side of it and some of the communication side of it, then all of a sudden that drew us back into it again. Because I think we just kind of lost sight of all the benefits that are available. And I think maybe with your return, if that's what the decision you want to make.
And our executive director too, Rob Harris,
Yeah,
he did
Yeah.
fundamental changes because he's been also maybe a couple years more than me since he started running the association. He also made some differences.
Some
So
huge differences.
I want to give.
Just shout out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Credit where credit's due.
Exactly. That's what I was just about to say.
So with that being said, all of a sudden we do see some additional advantages, but for most of our careers, I think probably you, all three of us here, we've always been part of some kind of a professional organization. And I think realizing the importance of not only being a member, but a participating member or an active member of that organization just makes it that much better. Like I know, for example, it's not necessarily SRMA, but it's Florida Makes. Right now, we're doing some work for the best employer.
Yeah.
There's a survey, and actually, I'm on a panelist tomorrow for this to kind of promote it as well. But there's just so many benefits that we've got. As Matthew just said a moment ago, is when you go to some of these events that are in person or virtual, but more in person, you get to know other owners of organizations or other chief executive officers or wherever they're doing, what they're doing, how they're doing it. But more so, you get to know them on a personal basis. I remember we came from one meeting we had, and actually the one of the owners that I got to know very well said, "Hey, I know you're right down the road from me. Can I catch a ride home with you?" And we had a good opportunity for a good half hour, just one-on-one to make his brain and everything else. So it's always some of those ancillary benefits that you don't necessarily sign up for, but just present themselves. So my point there is being you have to take advantage of all the things that are being offered to you. It's a lot easier to say, oh, we're a member, but they don't really help us or anything else. But the key is you've got to help yourself. And it's kind of like if you don't ask, you won't get type situation, or you don't participate, you won't get as much. So I think that's where the importance is of SRMA. The other aspects of it, they'll do, for example, within the community outreach. And that might be in the form of a job fair. So it might be for veterans. It might be for just local individuals. It might be through schools or anything else. But to participate in those that are sponsored by SRMA, I think is beneficial not only to us, but to the community and to the state itself. I mean, you're always looking for that. And Matthew's going to laugh because I always say you look for that win-win-win situation. It's a win for the individual, it's a win for the community, it's a win for the state, and of course, on this case, it's a win for ecological laboratories as well. So I think with that being said, that's the importance, that's the benefit. Just having these dialogues.
Exactly.
You and I talk on a regular basis. Is, hey, what do you think about this? What do hey, we're going to be doing this. Would you be part of it and everything else? And I think with that, as long as you are open to ideas and open to not just be led, but to lead in many of these initiatives, I think that speaks volumes, not only to the benefits of SRMA and FloridaMakes, but also the benefits of being an active member.
Yep. Well, very good points. And before you mentioned FloridaMakes SRMA, so we also have the FloridaMakes network, which I'm going to discuss with you next. But before that, there is also one thing. I'm not sure if you're aware. SRMA is partnering with Lee County Economic Development. I mean, we were partners before, but now we are even extending our partnership. And they have this event by Horizon Foundation. Manufacturer of the Year or Lee County Industry Awards, and there is Manufacturer of the Year in it. Now,
we did win that in 2007, I believe.
Things changing though this year, because this year SRMA is going to be directing or taking care of the Manufacturer of the Year part of things. So we're actually going to have a more enhanced process, if you will. We're going to have a group of examiners going to manufacturing facility and actually examining. There'll be experts in manufacturing giving you an assessment of your manufacturing processes, like a SWOT analysis, but a really detailed SWOT analysis. So you can check and then you can decide, okay, do I want to improve here or there, or what do I want to do with this report? And then based on that, you get a score, and then based on the score, a company wins. I don't think you applied yet. The application process, I know it's time consuming. It will take you about 3 hours to complete because it's the initial assessment, the application process itself. Based on how you complete the application, there will be companies selected for the in-person assessment. So I would highly recommend you to take advantage of that, because you're really going to get an expert judgment of your processes. You're going to get a report out, and then maybe you're going to win the award. And if you don't, you can get better, and then next year you may get it. Yeah, so that's something I'm not sure how much you were aware of our involvement, and that's the first year we're doing it. Good. So right now the nominations period or an application is until end of May. Then June, July, we're going to do the assessments, and then August there'll be professional video taken of the top 3 companies, and then in October there'll be the event, and Manufacturer of the Year is going to be awesome. Not like awarded, I guess. So next thing, you mentioned FloridaMakes. So SRMA FloridaMakes, it's actually the same thing. SRMA is like the arm of FloridaMakes in Southwest Florida.
Local chapter.
But FloridaMakes obviously has all the network of resources, third-party providers. Like also they have different programs like FLATE, which was the education. Do you have the employer of choice? So there's different programs. What do you think about the FloridaMakes network, and how did it benefit Ecological Labs? Did you take advantage of our resources and things like that?
Let me just jump in.
Please.
Okay, so what's interesting is I've always been aware of FloridaMakes and everything else, and I'll kind of get into the details there. But actually, our CEO was at it was not a job fair, but I'm going to say some sort of a trade show that was, I think, in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was going around to other people that sell additives to soil additives and wastewater treatment additives and things like that. And he came around and there was a booth with FloridaMakes. And, he kind of reported that back to Matthew and I as saying, oh, you know what? Are we part of this? We need to be part of it. So I'm sure he's a talker. And so he stopped by, I'm sure, at the booth and probably talked to him a little bit, try to get some more information. But it was nice to not only have Matthew and I, pushing it out, the need to be part of it, and here's the utilization that we plan on using, but to also have it come from a different source, which is even outside the state. like this Florida Makes, they're really an entity. So that was a big part of it too, is knowing that it's not just representing Florida manufacturers, which is their primary, but it's also some of these relationships that are built over time. Like Matthew started with earlier, we're international and everything else. So we might look at it and say, well, do we really want to be part of Florida Makes, or do we want to be part of like a US Global? Do we want to be part of Export USA? What exactly is the most, as they say, bang for the buck? And really, we've come down to it as saying Florida Makes has got great bang for their buck. And since then, we've done some additional training with your assistance. I appreciate that. As far as lean manufacturing, as far as Six Sigma training, as far as, forklift training, as far as, safety aspects and everything else. So we have really taken advantage of not only that training to have a vetted provider, but also have a big portion of that reimbursed through Florida Makes and through some of the organizations and some of the relationships that you built over time. And that makes our operations just that much more affordable, that much more efficient. And as a matter of fact, with the lean manufacturing Six Sigma aspect of it right now, we have basically 6 projects that are going on at this time under continuous improvement. And some have already more than paid for what we contributed into the situation.
I love to hear those.
And when I say more than, I'm probably by at least 4, 5, 6 times. And that's only the first phase of it. There's still multiple phases coming in. And one of the big aspects, actually, both Matthew and I are part of it, is once you're exposed to this culture that not only Florida Makes, but also what, some of the training provides. Once you see that, once you're exposed to it, you can't be unexposed to it. So once it's in your process, your wheelhouse, it's there. It's always there. It's in your toolbox bag, and you're going to use it each and every.
You're looking at the world differently, right?
Very much so, yes.
Do you have time?
Yeah, I mean,
We're still good?
another 10 minutes.
Okay, so yeah, I'll cut it out.
Okay.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, that's great. I love to hear those kind of stories. And yeah, you're right. The project was done just about a few months ago, I think. So you still have and you're already seeing benefits. So that's amazing. Glad to hear this kind of stuff.
Long-term benefits, yes.
So what about, I guess, manufacturing today? What's next for Ecological Labs, or in general? What do you think the state of manufacturing is like? And lots of advancements in technology, AI, robotics, automation, things like that. So where do you see, what's the future holds for?
So we're obviously still trying to grow markets that either we're in the middle of or just starting off at. There's a lot of new opportunities out there. From this facilities point of view, we have now finally outgrew our footprint. So we just finished our 6th building about a year and a half ago. We do have some cushion and some time right now. We built that, but we're already starting to feel that we're filling it up. So the big question to us is, what do we do next? And there's definitely multiple options that are going on. We're possibly moving our lab to a more state-of-the-art facility in the area of Southwest Florida where there are more technological companies closer to the airports, so to say, frees up more space here. Also, is the company growing that we're going to start having satellite manufacturing facilities across the country.
Oh, wow.
Not our whole operation, but at least the core products, if you will. So a Midwest location, like a West Coast location. And we're obviously looking at overseas, the partnerships as the company is growing. We want to get away from situations where either freight, time, energy, tariffs is a new word that people are obviously throwing around a lot. So, the elimination of having to ship from Cape Coral to somewhere else. Now, there's also the possibility that we have, the majority of the production in other parts of the country or the world, but the main key ingredients are made here, and those are sent out to be the final piece of the pie. So these are the things that we're exploring. But in the meantime, the company is growing. We're looking to become more efficient. We're looking for good talent as we need holes to be filled. Every year, we've almost been adding on at least 1 or 2, mid to high level employees. I only see that continuing. So these are the active things that Tim and myself are looking at. And of course, the things I mentioned before, the company as a whole
Yep.
there's a lot of teams that are involved with that. And that's R&D is involved. That's CEO, that's the owner's direction of where the company is going to go. There's a lot of moving parts right now, but it's exciting times for us. We're
Absolutely.
in that upward and forward direction. So, we're enjoying the feeling that we're in.
Great to hear, and I can see our relationship just growing and growing from here at SRMA FloridaMakes. We are here to support your growth and really be there with you on this adventure. So, what's the takeaways from today? I guess what's the closing remarks, or what would you say to one of us?
I definitely have to say thank you for your help, your participation, your guidance. It's everything we've worked together, the three at this table plus our company has been nothing but helpful. We're looking forward to the other things they're coming to us. Everyone else listening out there, do take advantage of these programs, because here are two people in particular that have positive experiences, and we go back to our company and that they're saying, hey, keep on bringing these type of things to the table, because
Awesome.
it's been beneficial. So any way we can be a a recommendation, referral, we have nothing but positive things to say.
Love to hear that. And Tim?
And to support exactly what Matthew has said, I guess to frame it in a perspective, much of my background, actually, I cut my teeth in manufacturing, like I said, in Michigan, in the Detroit area. And when you think manufacturing, that's the hub there, Ohio, some of the other Midwest or Rust Belt, if you will, those areas. And if you take what we've learned there and the services and the sponsorship and the relationships that we had in states like Michigan and Ohio in the Midwest, and then translate that down here, you see better service, more personable service, more what do you need? It's not like what does everyone need type environment. And with that I applaud those efforts, because it just makes us feel not only more appreciated, but it makes us as a manufacturer feel listened to, where sometimes you think, especially in Florida, well, Florida is a service industry and everything else. We hear not anymore. I like that. Exactly. Not anymore. And so the manufacturing's growing and growing, and to have advocates such as FloridaMakes, SRMA, and everything else, I think is just, just a wonderful tool to have, to use. And it's definitely a springboard to not only our future, but I think the future of the state of Florida as well.
Absolutely, really good, good closing, I guess, touch. And yeah, not only, I mean, we're still service industry. We're always going to be the sunshine state. However, manufacturing is growing as well, and we are the fastest growing manufacturing state in the country right now. And I think it's just going to accelerate. And it's also due to the partnership we established. And I believe lots of the people that moving to Florida, we are all kind of have the same thinking. We just want what's best for our state, for our communities. And that's how we know we flourish. And that's what I see happening. I think this it's just going to get bigger and better, or the product going to get stronger, and our company is going to grow, our partnership going to grow. So looking forward to that. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pavel.
Okay, perfect.